I think the first time when I realized it was a problem was when the doctors told me that I needed to go send up to Denver Children's Hospital right away because I was on my deathbed. My heart rate was 25 beats per minute.
Coach Greg, and I'm here with Serena Abweh.
Yeah, there you go.
I practiced this like 5 times before with her to make sure I got it right, and I was barely able to say it.
Flashback.
Serena Abweh. No, Abweh. Whey like whey protein, and not abs like your abs, but Abweh.
Abweh.
End of flashback.
So I got it right this time. Serena has like 300,000 followers on Instagram. She's only like 20 years old. She has a popular YouTube channel as well, and she's a world-class powerlifter. She told me 4'10", but she's a mountain of muscle, about 105 pounds. So she's a mini tank, a mini Hulk. And we're going to talk today about some of her struggles. She grew up with eating disorders, and we're going to say these words even though we don't care. We're going to call it the way they call it. So if you're one of these people that can't handle this kind of a video, like just watch another video. Just don't watch this one. Stop complaining about it. We're talking about it because we think it's an important message that people need to hear. Okay, so how are you doing now, right now, today, this minute?
This minute, I am nervous, but I'm excited. I'm really excited to just be able to share my story and talk openly about my struggles in the past, because I feel like struggles are put in your life in order to help others. Like, there's no reason we go through them without being able to help and encourage others. So I'm excited to do that today.
Great, and this is difficult material, so it's not easy to talk about. We have really happy that she's on here, willing to open up to us, because we really just want to help people, as this is not a small problem. There's so many people that are suffering from these things, and they don't talk about it. It's kept in the dark. It's secret. So this is hopefully going to educate people and help some people to combat their illnesses with eating disorders and so on. So a lot of people think that eating disorders, it's all just people obsessed with being thin because they just have to look thin. And I know your eating disorder started at a very young age, like 10 years old. So do you think this was the case for you, or is there some other reason that prompted you to feel this way?
Yeah, definitely eating disorders have a lot more to do with just wanting to look a certain way. It all goes back to a deeper meaning behind everything, and I feel like that meaning was control. A lot of people feel like they're out of control with their life, so they try to control what they do have, which is their weight. And that could lead into like their food habits or your exercise habits. Like, you crave that control. And for me, I felt like everything was out of control in my life. I was in a chaotic family environment. Things were very dysfunctional, and I didn't get the love that I needed as a child, and so I turned to the only thing that I could control, which was food. And that became a whole obsession in itself, because it just spirals out and spirals out.
Okay, and so because you wanted to control food and you got control of that, did anything else happen? Like, for example, did you start going on like websites to be part of this eating disorder mentality, learn from other people, and does that make it worse? Like, is there anything you can share on that? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it kind of grew into that, because as soon as people started pointing out my weight loss, like, I felt really good. So like I would go on Instagram, and this is when Instagram was pretty new too. They would have those stupid like elimination things with like pictures of food, like don't eat this, and stuff like that. So those would become embedded in my mind, and I would soon seek further and further. So soon I was going on raw vegan diets, and I would try any diet just to help me get thinner and thinner. And nothing was enough for me. It became bad when people started to point out that I looked anorexic. And in my mind, I thought that was a compliment, because it felt like I was doing something right. So I would go on these pro-ana sites, which is like a whole community that like encourages people to be anorexic and encourages people to eat less and less. And I would just spend hours and hours scrolling through those pictures of those girls and wishing I would look like them. And so definitely, before you tell someone with an eating disorder or anorexia, that they just need to eat more. It's so much more complicated than that. There's a whole psychological background of what's going on. And in my case, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, so I never really received the love that I needed as a child. And the only thing that I felt like that gave me comfort was that control that I had over food. And I just seeked control and perfectionism. And I thought maybe going through that, like, I would finally be good enough, but it never was enough.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a very complicated case. It's not just about wanting to look a certain way. You're trying to gain some kind of control. Food was an easy way to do that. And so you started to eat less. And I'm sure people are commenting on you saying you're fat, you're overweight, you look chubby. And then all of a sudden you're losing weight and you're getting that compliments, the feedback saying, hey, you look better. And you're like, oh, really? And then you start losing more weight and you're trying to get approval from your mom. You're trying to get attention from them, trying to look the best you can to be the best person that you can be. And you're doing that through food. But sooner or later, it gets out of control. It spirals downhill. You're discovering websites where other people are doing the same thing. It becomes normalized by other people. They're saying, you see on the internet, you're like, wow, well, look at all these people. They're super thin. They're thinner than me. I don't have a problem. They do. People might even say, hey, you look like you're anorexic. And you're like, well, no, I'm not. I'm not like that. And so what do you think about all that? Did that happen to you? Is it something like that in your case?
Exactly. Like, when you're in that situation, you can't trust your own opinion about yourself because you view yourself completely different than anyone else does. And that's when body dysmorphia comes in. And when you're anorexic, you never think that you're sick enough. So you're always trying to compete with the other person who's sicker than you. And it's a constant thing of just wanting to be the sickest. And you would go on these pro-ana sites, which is a whole community that encourages people to be even more distorted. And everything just becomes a comparison game. Like, who could eat less? Who could do the most workouts in a day? And soon those become rules. So soon in your head, you feel like you have to do that. You have to eat less every single day, or you have to never do that, never do this. And you just have your own rule book. And you have to follow that religiously because it's easier to follow your disorder than to get tormented by the voices in your head.
I feel like you might be comparing yourself to somebody like Eugenia Cooney. Am I saying that name right?
I have no idea how to say
Eugenia Cooney, perhaps. She's super thin, a famous YouTuber, millions of followers. And I'm thinking, if somebody was anorexic and watched her, they might think, well, I'm not as thin as her, so I might not have a problem, because it's almost normalized by seeing other people who are so thin that you're thinking, well, I don't have a problem. So what led to you thinking, actually, I do have a problem? This has gone too far, because at first, weight loss could be healthy. You might have been overweight and you're losing weight. Hey, that's great. But at some point, it crosses the line. Where do you think that happened for you?
I think that was when I was 12 years old. I would constantly go to doctor's visits because my mom would always check me out and make me go to them. I realized, like, I was doing very abnormal things. Like, I was eating lunch in the restroom so no one would see me eat. I would count my cherry tomatoes that I would put in my salad, and I would wake up in the middle of the night to do crunches and just anything that I could do to lose weight. And I realized, like, I don't think this is normal. My sisters would always tell me that it's not, but I didn't believe them, and I didn't care if it was normal or not. I just had a goal, and that goal was to be as thin as possible, even if that meant death. And I think the first time when I realized it was a problem was when the doctors told me that I needed to go send up to Denver Children's Hospital right away because I was on my deathbed. My heart rate was 25 beats per minute. And that's kind of when I knew it was a problem. But at the same time, when you're so far into it, it's hard to want to even get better.
So I think that it's important to notice that you're not going to actually notice you have an eating disorder, most likely until it's too late. Like, it's not like you get there and you're like, yeah, okay, it's going to happen. It's almost like it's so far past the point of it being a problem before you actually wake up and think that it's too late. So what are some of the signs you think that you could tell people who are watching this interview right now? Maybe they have an eating disorder right now. Maybe they're anorexic. Maybe there's a problem, but they don't realize it yet. What do you think you could tell these people right now on what they should be looking for? Like you said, counting every cherry, waking up in the middle of the night to do sit-ups. Like, to me, if I had to count every single calorie, if I'm worrying about the 1 calorie in the sugar packet, that to me is a giveaway sign. Is there anything else you can add that people can just 5 tips? Like, if you're doing these 5 things, and wow, you probably really should go see a doctor.
Definitely, if you feel really anxious about going off your meal plan or definitely if you feel like you feel this overwhelming anxiety for social events that involve food, I feel like that's definitely a sign.
Yeah, so let me just interrupt and say, so when you go out to a party and if you knew there was going to be food, then you just wouldn't go to the party. Like, I remember asking somebody out, I'm like, hey, let's go to the movies. And they're like, I can't go to the movies, I'll smell popcorn. I'm like, that seems excessive. I mean, I was on a diet for a bodybuilding show, and so I know what it's like to suffer and to be really hungry and to be trying to be as thin as possible. But obviously I never took it so far that I got too thin where I had to be put in a hospital or something. But for a lot of people, they don't know this. So I think that's a great point. Like, you're just so anxious that you don't know what to do with yourself around food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're constantly thinking of food all the time. I remember because people think anorexic hate food, which is the complete opposite. We love food. We just deprive ourselves because we feel like we're not good enough. And so I know I always watched Food Network. I would always watch people cook. Like, I would always feed people because I couldn't do it myself. So definitely, if you're overly obsessive about food.
A lot of people say if you track calories that you have an eating disorder. Like, I've been told I have an eating disorder. Why? Because I like eating low calorie dense foods. I know how many calories are in things. And it's almost like if you know how many calories are in something, that means you have an eating disorder. I mean, do you think it goes to that extreme? Like, if you're aware of the calories you're eating, I mean, where is drawing the line on doing calorie counting and being aware of the foods and trying to eat healthy? Where's the line between that and you're so obsessed it's an eating disorder?
Yeah, it's definitely slippery slope with people in the past that had an eating disorder, and they use bikini prep as a facade to mask their eating disorder.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, all the time I'm thinking, did that person have an eating disorder and got into competitions like bikini or bodybuilding because of this disorder? Or did they actually get into bodybuilding and bikini and then start dieting and then to develop the disorder after? To me, it's what came first, the chicken or the egg? So what is your personal feelings on that? You must know people who compete. Like, do you think that the competition is causing the disorder, or the other way around, or just maybe a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both, because I remember in the past I used to want to do bikini prep. I used to want to be a bikini competitor because I was like, wow, this is an easy way for me to stay lean and stay using bikini prep as an excuse to stay in my disorder and be as lean as possible. And no one would question it because they would think I'm just being healthy. But I also think that bikini preps also cause eating disorders because you become so aware of what food does to your body and the elimination of it, and you become addicted to staying lean and you want to just keep doing that, and that's when it becomes unhealthy.
I 100% agree. I think that competing in bikini and bodybuilding, these are dangerous activities if you're not already very confident in yourself and can handle that. Because I know personally, I've dieted down. You get down to 5% body fat. You look in the mirror, you're like, wow, I look so crazy. But then the contest is over. You gain back the weight, and it's like, well, do I have to do another contest again to kind of get down there? And then you have people trying to stay contest shape all the time. And when you're competing in a bikini show or a bodybuilding show, your body fat is not healthy. Bikini competitions or bodybuilding, they're not healthy. It's not healthy to be 5% body fat, or for a female to walk around with a 6-pack of abs and veins all the time and have to constantly tracking every single calorie to maintain that. So people easily can get into the habit of doing all these shows and competing just to mask the disorder. So I am confident that so many people doing competitions right now have an eating disorder. They don't even realize it because they're just trying to compete, look a certain way. And people are like, oh, well, you're just doing a bikini show. But if you see a championship level bikini competitor in real life, you would be shocked how lean they are. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. It's promoted on social media. Doesn't mean it's healthy.
Exactly.